Eric Mwade wanted to do a quick review on the portfolio holdings on your account, and so we're going to look at the charts here. Generally speaking, when I look at your both sets of longs and shorts, the stocks do look great. Your long ideas look okay. In fact, they look fine. And your short ideas also look good in my opinion. So the portfolio as it sits is perfectly set up, in the sense that if the market does choose to go down, your shorts should be moving in good favor in your direction. And if the market is to go up, you are positioned very well at the same time. So let's take a look at the two long ideas you have in the way of Apple and Monster Beverage and MNST. So we begin by taking a look at Apple here, and just quick reminder, and this is probably the best way of looking at it for now because it is moving above the prior weekly closing price. So on a monthly chart, which is probably the most powerful setting, it is above 118.46, and as long as it is holding above that price range, after it had attempted to do that last month and failed, now that it is climbing above that level, then that suggests that we could see higher prices. We are talking about 130s, 140s is very likely, as long as it is holding the monthly RSI above 69.1. So that this one looks good. No need to really look for more evidence of other types of signals. And we can see here that we're also looking at Apple right now pushing its MACDs to all-time highs, or at least to 3-year highs, which is exactly what you need for this market to continue pushing it higher. We take a look at Monster. Whoops, maybe I should try and type that again. All right, and we can see Monster here looks great, and the key for me is the fact that it continues holding above 69.1, which means that it is still strong, and you can see that it has been doing well ever since it jumped above that with this breakout here past the prior monthly closing high. So this entry moved it above 69.1, and since then we've been trading in this lower 70s all the way now to the 120s. It continues looking good in my opinion, and you can actually consider owning it as long as it's trading above this prior monthly closing high. So that would be a place where I would put a stop, and that would be at a price of 112.15. Now this is, it's just as a suggestion. Obviously you don't want to go more than 8% loss on the position, and I believe the entry was at 118.65, so we're talking about an entry somewhere probably even higher, a little bit higher. I'm surprised by that. Maybe I have the wrong price entry there. Let me check. And it seems from the text you had sent me with your positions that that's right. So let's say this would be 112 would be a little bit pushing it, so let's call it 3% loss to about, let's say 5% would be the maximum you want to take on this position with that entry at 118.65. So slightly down, no big deal, as long as you're not down 3% to 5%. In light of the position entry, let's take a look at what you are looking at here, and it looks like it is also moving above 69.1 on the weekly, which is good. Now I would speculate that you are using this prior weekly closing level as an entry level somewhere there, and that could be the case even though we haven't seen 2 weeks of rest. You'd like to see at least 2 weeks of rest, as you know, for this to be a nice entry. So this was going to be week number 3. So in terms of timing, I would say that was not primed on a weekly chart to break out with force. If it was to break out above the prior weekly closing high now, that would be a week number 3 breakout. In other words, we had the close, so we had a closing price Let's do this right. And then we had another close down, so another closing price down. And then now if we break out, see whether I can get the color back. So now if we break out above the prior, and this is now on a weekly, all these are weekly periods. So if we break out above this weekly closing high, then this becomes a continuation trade. It is continuation of the prior move. It is not a fresh breakout, and that's why we insist on 4-week rest if you're going to have a nice timing into a stock. So you have your week number 1, which is the closing high, and then you want to insist on at least 2 weeks down. And I'm just doing this for anybody else who might be wondering what I mean by this. So I know you understand this. I'm just doing it for the sake of others. And so we have 2 weeks below the prior weekly closing high. So that's minimum, because now if it breaks out, see this, change colors here. So let's say now it breaks out to new highs there, or a new weekly closing high, something like that. If it breaks out and this is the entry, then this is not a continuation trade, it is a new move, and that's why it can last longer and move the farthest. So that's the one thing I would say about the entry there. Seems to be slightly off in terms of timing, because it's not a week number 4 breakout. And take a look at the daily to see what your reasoning was on the daily. And again, on the daily, maybe you are trying to time this entry on a daily, because on the daily you also need a day number 4 breakout. Generally speaking, we are looking at a stock with a nice momentum. It's trading well. Price channels are holding, as you can see. I guess you can draw it. And so you can see that it is holding above the trend line pretty well. And so generally speaking, you can also see that the RSI is continuing to hold the lows. So it looks good. I don't have a fault in holding it because it's a stock that is doing well. Momentum is good. On the daily, we can also see that the MACDs are both now back above 0, which indicates that momentum is still to the upside, and this is a strong stock. So holding it is not a problem as long as you have a stop. If we take a look now at your short ideas, see whether we can get them on screen there. And as you can see, they are all of them are in the red, which is what you want. They're in the red since your purchase price. And I think when I looked at them prior to recording the video, they all looked great in terms of shorts, and I did mention that. So let's take a look at the first one, and you can see this one also looks like it is trading underneath and continues to trade underneath the 10-week moving average, and all these are sloping. We have a bearish cross between the 13 and the 34-week moving average, which is bearish also. Depending on how markets behave here, it would very easily break the lows on the weekly chart. If we take a look at the monthly, we don't have enough data on the monthly, so we're going to have to go back to the weekly. So whenever you don't have enough data on one time frame, in this example, which is the monthly, then the default has to be and I'm talking about, this is the monthly. We don't have data to enough data to generate the RSI, and so that becomes a problem. So you are forced to use the next level up or down, I guess next level down, which is the weekly in this example. If the weekly did not have enough data to generate weekly indicators, then we have to by default go to dailies. If the dailies don't have enough data to generate the indicators, then you are forced to go to the hourlies and so on. So whenever you're trading IPOs, you trade the time frame that has the enough data to generate indicators. All right, so we come back here to our weekly, and again we see that the RSI could very easily slip to 3-year lows, which would be bearish. Also, if the market stumbles here, this would break this 35 zone where it's been holding steady. And also we can see that the MACDs as of right now on the weekly are also trading at 3-year or at least all-time lows minimum, or at least close to all-time lows. So that could be a good one to hold. All you're looking for here is asking for the market to break it, and it should be a good hold for a short. We're looking at IBM here on the weekly, and the one thing I did note is that you still have a 1% gain on IBM, even though it's up 3% for the week. So one thing I do notice here is that improving technicals on IBM, while prices have been making lower lows. So that could be one of the reasons why it's setting up to move higher. But now it comes to the top side of the channel. So if you draw another parallel line, it looks something like this. It's coming close to the top side of that channel, and I'll show you on the daily why I do believe that it still struggles, or IBM is still going to struggle, because we have this sharply declining 50-day moving average, which has become resistance since the go back to about 5 months ago or so, when it's dropped below 50, and also has been using 50 as resistance over the last couple of months, even here, and now we are back there. So it would not surprise me that around here IBM struggles. You can take a look at the break, most recent break in the RSI, which is this break that was decisive in taking it lower. So you can draw that line which gave us this most recent high, and just draw a simple straight line around that 50 level, and you see that now there's more information as to where resistance has been had and where it's been finding it difficult to move above this range. So as long as it is finding it difficult to move above this line on the daily, then we have to conclude that this continues to be a good short. Now, of course, if it can climb above that line and trade above here, maybe now it is in a different phase. But I do continue thinking that this one can be on your portfolio as a short. We'll take a look at the monthly here, and you can see that it had a 3% gain for the month also, still trading at or at a close to 3-year lows. So I would still continue owning this one from the analysis on the daily chart, which we just did. There's also another line of reference, and which is this actual break. The break is a little bit higher than the line I drew because the break took place there, and that also corresponds with that break and that high previously. So there's another line slightly higher. So in the coming weeks and months, if it comes back to this line also and shows resistance, then it still can be a short candidate. The other one on which is the last one on your list of short ideas, on the list of stocks that you own on the short side, is Las Vegas. And like IBM, there's a slight improvement in the technicals because of lower lows on the price, higher highs in the technicals. So that could set up for a move higher, yes. But if we come back to the daily analysis, and if you recall, about 2 days ago, we discussed the possibility of getting out of LVS because it was trading here at the time, and we decided to hold and continue holding short because the RSI had come back to previous line of resistance. As you can see that this gave us a high, these highs, and also the resistance gave us that short-term high, and since then it's been struggling to hold the RSI level, and the price came back here recently, showed resistance and dropped. And also, so the other day when we were discussing possibility of getting out here, but it was trading here, which was one of the reasons why I thought it was okay to continue holding and wait for it to drop. Now, one of the reasons why I had that opinion at the time is because when I took a look at win results, is that I did notice that it also had come back to its level of resistance at the time, and it was it was down that pre-morning action. So because Win was showing this resistance and it was down before LVS went down that day, I thought this was good enough indication that since they both move in the same they both move and they're from the same sector, that it would also drop. And you can see that made sense, because if Win was showing resistance on the hourly, the odds were very high that LVS would also do the same. So go back to LVS, and now on the daily you can see that it's been struggling ever since this break there, which gave us the high. It's been struggling to hold that line. And so this simple straight line like that on the daily gives you a lot of information in terms of the break was there, that was that high, and then now we come and find the other levels where it's been showing resistance with uniform action at the line and back below it, gave you a nice high, double top resistance, short-term high, a multiple resistance zone there, gave you a high, and now recently we've seen a double top on the daily. So as long as it is finding it difficult to move above this line, and it is finding it difficult to move above the 50-day moving average, I still think that LVS is still a short. I hope that helps you in deciding what to do with your holdings. Otherwise, this is Eric Muathe. Good luck, peace, and blessings. Woo!